Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast where one of the hosts would really like to sniff Keyshawn Booty. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. And I am joined ahead of week 7. Didn't get a reaction from him. That's okay. It's Sam Monson, one of the hosts of the Check the Mic podcast. You've been on this show before. Welcome back to the show, Sam.
Thank you. You don't need patronizing laughter from me. I'm going to wait until you've really earned it before I'm going to give you the good stuff.
It's not my best work. You know what, though? I was late to the Drake May Spencer Rattler masterclass. And so Keyshawn Booty's on my mind. So is Spencer Rattler. I'm going to talk about the day because we're going to talk about every game. As always, my other co-host and I are going to preview every single week 7 game. Sam, before we started recording, I said to you, this is actually pretty good. I think this is a better slate of games than last week.
Yeah, there's some fun games this weekend. I think this is a good week.
So much so that I always pick like 5, maybe 6 games for both of us to cover. And I actually had to narrow it down. There was a few that I was like, oh, should we both talk about Commanders, Cowboys? There's some good ones. One of those games, however, is not Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
So, to remind people, some games Sam will give a key, some games I will give a key. The good games, we're going to talk about both, but I gave myself Thursday Night Football as an act of mercy to you. It's Mike Tomlin against the world's greatest quarterback in Mike Tomlin's eyes, Joe Flacco. Mike Tomlin, disgusted, appalled, so shocked that Cleveland would dare trade Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals. Before I get into my key, are you buying that from Tomlin? I just want to address it really quickly because they showed it to us on NFL Live and I kind of laughed, and then everyone was like, why are you laughing? I was like, have you guys watched Joe Flacco this year? I feel what was your response to that?
I just thought it was a sort of wild departure from, the usual niceties of kind of high up people in NFL organizations. Like, you don't tend to hear, that's a fairly public dragging of Andrew Berry, whether or not you agree with him. I think his reasoning is pretty ridiculous. Like, at no point did the Browns think that Joe Flacco was a long-term or even season-long answer for them. So it doesn't make any sense in those terms. Like, oh, they thought this guy was good enough in week 1. They thought he was good enough to hold the job for a month, and that's basically what he did. It's a fairly public assassination of Andrew Berry for no particular reason.
Yeah, I think I can understand coaches not liking interdivision trades and not wanting to do it generally, and you don't see them very often, so there's that. I guess I just keep going back to how bad Joe Flacco was. What I'll always say is I don't think there's any part of Mike Tomlin that actually fears this Joe Flacco-led Bengals offense. And along those lines, my key is I'm going to focus on the Steelers pass rush in this one because I just think they have the capacity to completely take over this football game. The Bengals offensive line is really, really bad. And the Steelers pass rushers have been quite good. The stat I wanted to highlight for this, so Next Gen Stats, my friend Keegan Abdu just clued me in. They started tracking how often players get chipped, which is a fun thing to follow. The most chipped player, according to Next Gen Stats, is TJ Watt. But what really struck me, Sam, looking at this, is 7th highest is Nick Herbig. And that struck me not because I was surprised about Nick Herbig is very good and has been an absolute smash for them, but to have 1 and 7 on the same team is, especially if they have good defensive tackles, is pretty interesting, and I think speaks to how scared teams still are of this Steelers pass rush.
Yeah, and that rotation, that sort of depth that they have on the defensive line is scary because Alex Highsmith is a monster in his own right when he's out there as well for them. They have 3 legitimate high-end pass rushers that can all terrify teams. So it's so much harder to game plan against that Steelers defensive line than it is for, a team like the Bengals or like the Browns when it really is much more of a one-man show.
Herbig also was, by the way, dominant against the Browns. In particular, last week he had, 8 pressures, 2 sacks, 5 quick pressures, which is, if you get it in under 2.5 seconds, very rare to see a player with that kind of stat line. It's a real problem for Cincinnati. I do want to ask you quickly about the other side of the ball, though, because the Steelers are coming off of probably their best offensive performance of the year. and a performance in which Aaron Rodgers pushed the ball downfield at a rate he has not done this year. He still, even with this game, has the lowest average depth of target in football of any quarterback. Watching him, though, this last week against a Cleveland defense that is very good, but also I would say very predictable in their tendencies. Did you feel like, okay, maybe Rodgers has another level to unlock in terms of throwing downfield, or do you think those were just opportunities because of how much Cleveland stacks the box and gives you one-on-ones?
Yeah, I think it was very dependent on the opposition. I mean, the last 2 weeks, they've kinda gone 2 different extremes. Like, against the Vikings, it was really fast. It was almost there were a bunch of sort of old school package plays, almost like predating RPOs, with Rodgers just deciding, "This is basically a run play, but if you're one-on-one against somebody I like, I'm just gonna fire you the ball. Wake up. Be it pay attention to it." So that was like the game plan against Minnesota, and then against Cleveland, total opposite end of the spectrum from a Flores defense. There's not much misdirection or confusion. It is going to be opportunity driven deeper down the field. And if we can just hold up front, and they did against Miles Garrett, find ways of taking him out of the game, well, then the chance will be there for Rodgers to uncork it a little bit deeper. And he did. One of those was ugly underthrown by like 5 yards underthrown. That was a little bit worrying for a guy that, like, normally the narrative on Rodgers is even at this age, he still got the arm strength. I mean, he didn't on that throw. Usually I think he does, but yeah, I think he's shown though that they're willing to do whatever the game plan sort of takes them towards.
Yeah, I think Arthur Smith deserves a lot of credit for this year. Quite frankly, like I think that you hit it. I've been really impressed by their individual game plans. They've been experimenting with things in the run game. This is a very like heavy body, 6 offensive linemen now run scheme where Darnell Washington at least once a game Darnell Washington is going to be wide ass open because they forget to cover him. And every time I'm delighted anew. It happened against the Browns. I'm telling you, if there's probably a bet for this, I will bet every game on Darnell Washington having at least one surprising, potentially explosive catch.
And it looks in the open field, Darnell Washington rumbling is one of the
Love it.
sights to see in the NFL these days.
One of my favorite things. On the Bengals, by the way, I will say because I know this is like the season from hell and they're all very depressed and rightfully so. And I'm not going to be complimentary about a Joe Flacco led offense that did manage, by the way, to move the ball in Green Bay in the end of the game. Well, I will give them that. The defense is not apocalyptically bad, which a little surprising. Wouldn't you say? Like that was one thing that struck me against Green Bay. I was like, oh, like guys are covering. Like the secondary is actually playing decently well in this.
Yeah, and look, even Joe Flacco, like I was on the side of I don't see why anybody would trade anything for Joe Flacco at this point, given what we're witnessing in recent times. But he played a clean game against Green Bay. And if he does play a clean game, like he is willing to throw the ball up to Jamar Chase. I mean, that touchdown that Chase had was absurd. Like, no business catching that whatsoever. But Joe Flacco is willing to just put the ball in the air, give him a shot, and that's the assignment. And if you can avoid making the terrible mistake that Jake Browning wasn't able to avoid, that is a big upgrade. Now, do I bet on that happening 2 weeks in a row? Probably not. But that's the kind of gamble that they've taken. And yeah, the defense I think has taken at least steps in the right direction, given they're still pretty banged up. They are missing some bodies. They're making some changes. So, they're still fighting. It's just I think effectively the season was probably over the moment Joe Burrow went down.
Yeah. So obviously, all that said, I'm taking the Steelers in this. I imagine you are too.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to I think a pretty good game. Rams Jags. You're on their way team, the Rams, so you can go first here. What is your key for the Rams in this game?
I think it's the front four generally on defense. We saw what happened a week ago to Jacksonville. That Seahawks defensive front really caused them problems. The Rams, it's not the same. Like they're not going to attack them the same way, but they're fourth in the league in stunt rate according to Sumer Sports. Like they do mix it up front. They do exchange gaps. They've got really good sort of one-on-one individuals as well. I think it's going to be another really big test for that Jacksonville offensive line.
My key for the Jags was can they do a better job protecting Trevor Lawrence? So we're just on either side of this. Yeah, so you said it with the Rams. They have very good pass rush. They're ninth in pass rush when the third in quarterback hits this year. And we saw what Seattle did to this Jags offensive line. You know what was interesting about that game though? And Trevor was just dead, like back there. He had no chance in that game. So the Jags were missing their center, Hainsey, who's been good for them. But I went back. We did some of the we did like a breakdown of the sacks on NFL Live. It was kind of everyone else who was getting beat. Like Walker Little was just getting
Yeah.
dog walked on the left side in this one. So the reason though I say do a better job is because they have for most of the year. Like until that Seahawks game, this Jags offensive line has been like a surprising, and I say surprising because Sam, that was like my biggest concern about the Jags offense going to this year. And until this game, they have been pretty damn good again until the Seattle game. So they could potentially be an area of strength against a very good Rams pass rush. And I'm sure, agree. There's a lot of vulnerabilities behind that pass rush in Los Angeles that Jacksonville can take advantage of.
Yeah, and even for a couple of years, that Jacksonville pass protection wise, their offensive line's been pretty solid. It's usually not been a good run blocking unit, and then with Liam Cohen coming over, the run game's actually been dramatically improved. Suddenly, the line looks way better in that regard. And like if it stayed the way it was from a pass blocking standpoint, you'd be in pretty good shape. But then the Seahawks show up and absolutely destroy that line. So yeah, normally it wouldn't be a thing I was focusing on, but because it got wrecked so hard a week ago and another really good defensive line is coming to town, I think it has to be.
No Puka Nakua in this game. What's your level of concern for this Rams offense without Puka?
I mean, it's obviously a big blow to them, not just because he was on his way to like blowing apart the receptions record for the season. I do kind of wonder if they just pivot to throwing the ball to Devontae Adams 20 times in the game instead. Like, does he just take all of the workload as the last man standing, and then we'll launch an occasional bomb to Tutu Atwell or whatever? Like, I think Adams can still play.
He can still play. It's been weird though, right? Like there are moments where you're like, "Damn, I can't believe they got Devontae Adams," and he gets open. So it's not like it's not, you're not seeing an old guy out there he gets open
Right.
and he does all the little vet things that he's always done. But then there are weird like moments of disconnect where the timing just isn't right. And you saw that last week in the red zone multiple
Yeah.
times where you're like, what's going on? It's like Stafford expects him to be somewhere he's not, or Stafford isn't like putting the ball where Devontae wants it. But yeah, to your point, like then with Puka out, that becomes that disconnect. They got to figure that out real fast. One thing I'm interested in with LA is whether or not they just run the same offense without Puka, or whether McVay pivots a little bit. Puka is like such a unique, he's kind of like a hybrid tight end wide receiver in that offense. And they have players like Jordan Whittington who can do that. And I think they're going to want to have Tutu Atwell on the field as well. But I don't know if that's the best approach. They have barely used their second round tight end, Terrence Ferguson, who in the preseason looked like potentially an explosive option at that position, I imagine because of blocking. But I feel like Sean might have to, as he's done many times, by the way, with when players have gone down, kind of evolve the offense in his absence a little bit.
And I think everyone was kind of excited or maybe thought that they were going to pivot even independent of all this because suddenly they were running less 11 personnel. You're like,
Yeah.
it's finally happening. McVay's going away from 11. And then we're sort of straight back to just, no, it's just Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams. That's the offense.
Are you on I'll go first. I'm on the Jacks in this. And it's entirely because of the Puka Nakua injury.
I think I'm such a slave to last week that I'm going with the Rams just because of how badly that Jacksonville offensive line was destroyed until I see otherwise.
Yeah, I'll be interested in seeing if the Jags run game can return to form. As you said, it's been so good. Actually, you know what? That's another injury. I wanted to check on the availability of Brenton Strange because I think he's like sneakily become a really
I think
important.
he's
Oh no,
down.
he's
Didn't
injured reserve.
he
Oh, I thought it was a week
yeah.
to week thing. Oh no. Ooh, I'm still gonna be a Jags, but I wish he was back. He was like quietly really important to what they
He
were
was
doing
looking really good.
on the ground. Yeah, this is a close one. It's a close one. All right. And the Jags defense, I find it hard to get my arms around too. Like they're so turnover dependent, it feels like. But
Such a crazy numbers they've been putting up.
yeah. All right. Eagles Vikings. Fascinating game.
So I was trying to sort of think it's basically the same thing, but I was trying to work out what the best specific angle for this is. I think the most important key to it is getting Saquon Barkley going. And the reason I think that is because like Flores' defense, as good and creative as it is surprisingly gap unsound so many times this season.
Especially this year, yeah.
Yeah, and they do get done in the run game as well. So, number one, I think they're a little bit vulnerable to the run relative to the pass anyway. And number two, there's so often there isn't a guy in the right gap. And if you show that to Saquon, I mean, he's exactly the type of running back like Bijan Robinson that can just instantly click his fingers, jump a gap over, and be gone for 50 yards. And that's really the thing the Eagles have been missing this year is Saquon hasn't done that like he did all last season.
Sam, once again, we have a like-minded approach. I wrote Vikings. Can you stop the run to have some fun? Because they haven't been, and it's actually more than a little. 24th in success rate against the what run this year, which is a very significant drop off from last year. They were a top 5 unit. Um, they just got ran on last 2 weeks. You've really seen some problems with performance against the run, even against lesser competition. Blake Cashman potentially back in this, something to
Yeah.
monitor because I do think that is part of it. Their middle linebacker, I think losing him is quietly a big deal. But yeah, it is to your point. It's like sort of weakness on weakness right now because the Eagles don't just have a not like their run game in Philadelphia isn't just not top 5. It's below average right now, right? It's like it's neither explosive nor efficient. Um Before I get to the Vikings deep pass defense, which is where then Minnesota has the advantage, I think. When you watch the Eagles run game, because I think it's so fascinating. Do you think it's just a matter of this offensive line's a little older, a little banged up, you lose Becton, they're not blocking as well, Saquon's getting contacted behind the line of scrimmage because of that? Or do you think it's a predictability thing with their gun runs, teams aren't as afraid of Jalen Hurts keeping the ball, they're able to just key in on Saquon right away, the run scheme needs to evolve?
I think it's more the latter. I think it's more the scheme than the offensive line just falling
Hmm,
off a cliff. It's part of it because, Landon Dickerson going down, he's a really, really good run blocking guard. And that's obviously a blow when they lose him. But I think it is more, and it's not just the run game. Like this entire offense, teams seem to have a way better handle on just what exactly they're going to do, when they're going to do it. And they're shutting down pretty much everything they want to do, other than like, let's just target the athletes. Like every now and again, we'll just heave one to Dallas Goddard or AJ Brown. And it turns out those guys are good enough to make those plays when you do that. But it does seem the teams understand what they're facing against the Eagles.
yeah, it was really striking to me to hear Lane Johnson basically say as much after the game. You see his comments. He was like, "We're predictable," and Lane, friend of the pod, is very intentional with his words, and I feel like that was. I wouldn't call it a shot, but it was like a real statement about where he thinks this thing needs to be fixed because it has been a real problem this year. And while I think that the struggles with in the past game, which I'll get to now briefly, but those they have to fix as well. To me, it all flows from the inability to run the ball. The reason why
Yeah.
defenses are able to do a lot of the, the sims and whatnot, the fires, it's because the Eagles can't dictate on the ground. So they're in unfavorable down and distances. They're not getting single high coverage, all of it. So okay, passing game though is it's an issue because all the things that Jalen Hurts and this offense have struggled with this year are things that the Minnesota Vikings like do better than anyone else in the NFL. Um, Particularly those fire zones, right? And so Minnesota has the highest zone blitz rate in the entire NFL. 34% of the time, the NFL average is 13% to put that in perspective. And Hertz is 30th league wide in QBR versus zone pressures this year. So I feel like again, this running thing is really essential for him because if he's down there, he's back there dropping back a lot in this game. I do worry about that matchup for Philadelphia.
Yeah, definitely. The only way I think every time I watch the Vikings, I kind of think this that for all the smoke and mirrors and the fire zone and the confusion and the misdirection, every now and again, you're just going to end up in a situation where like AJ Brown is one on one with Jeffrey Okuda, and that's still a problem. I mean, like,
Yeah,
there's only so much hiding you can do of that. If the Eagles just go, you know what, I don't even care what the coverage is, I'm just going to take a shot at this. There's a chance that that could just go their way because they have a better player.
100%. other side of the ball is hard to talk about because we don't know who's playing quarterback. Could be Carson Wentz. It could be JJ McCarthy. It
I
could not
think it's gonna be
matter.
Wentz. Like,
You think
I
so?
watched I went trawling through Kevin O'Connell's comments to the media yesterday.
Mm.
Um, it doesn't sound like they're massively ready to throw JJ McCarthy back in there. He made a point of saying, "Look, Carson Wentz is dealing with a shoulder. We got to see what that it is." However, his non-throwing shoulder. I mean, Kevin O'Connell brought that point up. So the offensive line should be in a little bit better shape than normal. What, four of the five guys that they would want out there back in there? I feel like it's going to be Wentz.
So on the other side of the ball, Quinion Mitchell still touch and go. Jalen Carter, I think, is going to play in this one because he was almost about to play on Thursday night. Um, I do this Eagles show, all Philly, twice a week, once every other week, and they asked me if I was worried about the defense, and I was like, way more worried about the offense. The Eagles just lost their two indispensable players in this last game, but they might be missing one of them against Justin Jefferson. So regardless of who's playing quarterback, this really feels like one where like they just get the ball to Jefferson, man. Like if Mitchell's not out there, there is
Yeah,
no one in that Eagles secondary who can cover Justin Jefferson. You just got to give the football.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, if Mitchell being missing for them is huge, we saw that against the Giants, even without an elite wide receiver to take advantage of it, it should be just a bullseye for Minnesota if that happens.
I'm gonna take Philadelphia. Um, I mean, we don't even know who's playing quarterback for Minnesota, and also I think that the Eagles' defense can play. Assuming Carter plays, I think they'll look better, even with potentially Mitchell missing, than they did last week. But still nervous about that Eagles offense. I
Yeah.
do in some ways it's almost better that they have to figure this out now as opposed to like January, but they got to figure it out, and it really starts with the run for me.
They're also a weird team because we've seen the worst case scenario already, right?
Yeah.
Like a year ago, 2023, when it happened, like that is within the range of outcomes that they never figure it out. It all spirals out of control, and the whole thing is a disaster. Like you would say for the Chiefs or the Ravens or whoever the other team is, you'd be like, well, that's probably even worst case. It's not going to end up like that. But we know worst case is it does end up like that for the Eagles because we've already seen it. I'm I think ultimately I'm with you. I think they bounce back, but I don't know. It's definitely, diffy.
Run the ball, just run the ball well, and I'll feel a lot better about this team if they can figure out a way to run the ball well. All right, I gave you the Mike Vrabel revenge game.
Yeah.
Patriots against and now Brian Callahan less Mike McCoy led. That's a good name. Just coming back into my life. Tennessee Titans team. What's your key for this game?
I struggle to find one for this game. I think what I went with was just kind of I'm interested to see what changes, right? Because the Callahan thing, it was all a disaster. Nothing was working well. If anything, Cam Ward, he's not just been a different quarterback than I expected to see, but it's a worse version of the quarterback I expected to see. So I'm just interested in okay, you've short week, new interim head coach bump. We got rid of the guy that we've decided was a drag on the ticket. What do we change? Like what do we change in a week's notice to make this immediately better? That's the thing I'm kind of looking out for in this game because something has to, otherwise they've got no shot.
I think one of my fears with this and McCoy taking over is that they go into this just being like, we're going to run the ball because I don't think they can run the ball on New England. And I think if they try that, we're just going to see Cam Ward in a bunch of third and longs. And this
Yeah.
passing game obviously has been horrendous. But yeah, sometimes you get that dead coach bounce from teams. The defense has been like competent. So unfortunately, they're about to run into the Drake May buzzsaw. I mentioned it at the top of the show. Kayshon Boutte. Whew. Some of these throws May's making under pressure week after week are just so insane.
May's in that category now where it's like you're asking yourself how much sample size do I need before I get really excited, right? It's like all of us have been doing this long enough that
Uh,
anybody can have two really really good games, even ones that look like Drake Mays. Like it's possible. But eventually you start to go, well this is who he is now. And if that's who he is, we're talking about something like crazy excited. He looks awesome right now.
After this, he's got the Browns, the Falcons, and the Bucks, which are all better defenses. the Bucks one is the one I'm really intrigued by. Patriots Bucks in early November. I think that's going to be a really fascinating test for both teams and both quarterbacks who are obviously getting deservedly a lot of hype right now. I'm taking New England in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Revenge game. All right. That game looks like a treat compared to mine. Panthers Jets. Whoo, buddy. I talked about the Panthers at length. They were my winner on Tuesday's pod, so I'm not going to get into them too much here. But Panthers about potentially. I mean, spoiler. I'm picking the Panthers. 4-3 is, on the horizon for them. Yeah,
They've got
right.
crazy their home road splits are nuts, right? Aren't they 3-0 at home and 3-0-3 on the road?
Yeah. Well, the Jets are usually a good fix for that. The Panthers' underlying numbers are, like, pretty good too.
Yeah.
It's not like a smoke and mirrors thing. So, anyways, that's the Panthers. My key for this game is Justin Fields, can you throw the ball in under 3 seconds? Please. And the thing I will say about Fields, who was god awful in the London game, unfortunately, is he's actually been better than that this year. I keep saying that. People ask me about it. And I'm not saying he's been good. This is not a Justin Fields defense. I'm not saying he should be an NFL starter. But the version of him we saw this past week against Denver was, I would say, Sam, significantly worse than who he's been this year. And there is a world in which they can run the ball against the Carolina run defense that was shockingly good, by the way, against Dallas. But he cannot hold on to the football the way he did in that game. It was just non-playable.
No, it was in his defense, it's one of the worst defenses you could put him against and be like, okay, this is probably going to be a rough day. What are you going to do about it? I mean, he's one of those quarterbacks I think that can make a bad situation worse sometimes. Not all the time. Like sometimes he's one on one with Miles Garrett, who's been like owned as blocker, and he makes him look ridiculous and runs for a touchdown. But oftentimes you do get games like this where it's like there's pressure coming from everywhere. Nobody's open early. You have to trust what you're seeing and put the ball in the air, and he won't. He'll hold the ball and make it worse, right? And like that's just it's going to go terribly, and it did. It should be a better spot though this week. Like the Panthers don't have that kind of juice up front.
Yeah.
They should. It's the type of defense that he could look good against.
Um, are you a believer in this Panthers run defense after the last 2 weeks? Because I said on the pod on Monday, that was by far the most surprising thing of the game, right? Like the Panthers running the ball rough shot on Dallas was cool and they were dominant but they've been good at running the ball now for over like last year. They were good at running the ball, right? Like with Hubbard, now Dowdle, Blind. I guess it was surprising in so far as like the line was injured and they still kicked their asses, but that was cool. But that was like, okay, it's Dallas. I could see that happening. Javonte Williams up to that game had been like
Yeah.
the most efficient running back in football, and they stonewalled him. I mean, did that take you by surprise?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think it's Dallas's offensive line, which on paper looks really rough right now. So it was surprising that up until that point, the Cowboys had such success running the ball, and generally the offense had been fantastic. Anytime you've got that weak an offensive line, you're sort of always wondering when that's going to show up as a problem. And obviously it's always likely to do it against elite defensive lines, but every now and again it could just show up as a problem because it is a problem that somehow you've been able to evade for the last few weeks. So from that point of view, maybe it was always coming, but it was definitely I didn't expect that going into the game.
I'm taking Carolina in this. I could see this being like finally the Jets get off to Schneid because Carolina has been inconsistent.
I'm going with the Jets. I
I
think
think that I don't blame you. This feels like a trap game for
they
Carolina.
shouldn't be this bad.
Yeah,
That's the thing that's annoying me about the Jets. Like I expected them to be feisty, competitive, and it just hasn't been.
the first few games it did look like they were like you were like, oh, they should have won. Like if not for Black, I mean the Bucks game. Like what? It's crazy to look back now. Yeah, maybe I should take the Jets.
Don't let me talk you into it.
Carolina's a better team. I'm taking Carolina. Okay, Dolphins, Browns. Speaking of teams that are headed for, well, more than the Jets, I think Mike McDaniel. Do we think he makes it all the way to the end of the season if he loses this game?
I mean, I feel like he's on a burning hot seat that has to end relatively soon, but I don't know if the team does. I'm curious whether they have faith in him. But I mean, it feels like a toxic situation where the whole thing is spiraling out of control. And that usually doesn't end in anything other than the coach being fired.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's your key in this game?
I think Miami's defense slash defensive line, the run game, right? They, generally speaking, that defensive line should not be as bad as it's been so far this season. The Browns need to run the ball for that to be a functioning offense. Like they can't have Dylan Gabriel dropping back as much as he did last week. They saw the week before when they did run against Minnesota with Quinshon Judkins. Like it can function. It's not going to be elite or anything. Miami's defense is giving up like 5 yards a carry and almost 2 yards before contact per carry. The Browns, like if they can run the ball, they've got a real good shot in this game. If they can't, then ugh.
Totally agree. They just got to make this really ugly and muck it up, and like you said, they got to run the ball, which they're capable of. And it was a little bit puzzling that they didn't lean into that more last week. So yeah, and defensively too. It's interesting. The Browns defense is so interesting to me, Sam, because they're like the best defense that good offensive play callers can attack. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, I get
they're
it.
so talented, but they also have like they're just so predictable in ways, I think. And Pittsburgh really was, again, very good game plan by Arthur Smith, I thought, going after them. Miami potentially could do the same thing, I think, in this one. So I actually think that I think I'm gonna take Miami in this one because of that, because I think that the Miami offense will be able to move the ball on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. It's another one where it does come down to the offensive line at times. Well, like Miami certainly doesn't have anyone that can block Miles Garrett, and they've got more than just Miles Garrett at the moment. Like they've got a stable of pass rushers. I don't know if they can hold up long enough to be able to get those passes in the air that they want to.
That's true. Mm, you could talk me into the Browns here. This is a hard one to pick.
I'm succeeding far too well in talking you into
I know.
things. If you've seen my picks for the season, I would not be listening to my
Okay.
arguments.
All right, I'm gonna stick with Miami. I mean, what these teams are so bad. It's when you have like a bad team against a bad team, it's always difficult to pick. All right. What about you? Dolphins, Browns.
I'm going to go with the Browns. I think last week was a bad representation. I think they're better than that.
I agree. All right, Saints, Bears. I'd like to make a statement. The agenda is back on. I took me a second to get to the Patriots Saints tape from this week. I've been teetering on the edge of buying back into Spencer Rattler, and I'm back in. I'm back in. I'm in the Rat Pack. I mean, I'm sorry, but he's playing so much better than their record. In that game against New England, he was on an absolute heater at one point, but he threw some of the best passes I saw all week. And what's striking to me is they're not like gimmies.
Yeah.
Some of the throws he is routinely now making under pressure are, by the way, fourth league wide amongst quarterbacks in QBR under pressure, despite facing the fourth highest quick pressure rate in the NFL, are entirely because of his, I would say, one, his arm talent, which has always been there, but also his development. Um, Against New England, I think about like the bomb to Olave it's versus the blitz, the way he like calmly sidestepped the rusher to reset and throw. That's been the case all year. He's been so much better this year as a manager of the pocket, and that is leading to some of the production we're getting, as well as coupled with better decision making overall. I really think he has taken a step forward as a quarterback and should be a starter in the NFL.
Yeah. He's been a really surprising player. I mean, I imagine most people wrote him off based off what last year looked like, including the Saints. I mean, I don't think they had any intention of him being the starter coming into this year. They wanted Tyler Shuck to win that job, and only because he didn't, they had to go, okay, fine. I guess we'll go with Spencer Rattler again for a while, right? Presumably imagining that like at some point he would play his way to the bench and they put in Shuck anyway. And he hasn't. He looked really good. We spitballed this idea on our show this morning when we had Austin Gale on. I asked him, look, if you were no more information than what you've seen, would you take Spencer Rattler over JJ McCarthy right now as the quarterback going forward? It sounds like you'd put him even higher. How many of those quarterbacks would you take over Rattler?
Okay, not that class is all looking really good, so I'm not taking him over the big three, but
Yeah,
he's definitely been better than JJ. I mean, obviously JJ McCarthy's barely played,
right.
but like, I, what I think too, Sam, is like I watched all of his games last year, which I feel like a lot of people did, and he was just, the situation was awful. The offensive line was awful. Olave didn't play, whatever. But he also was. I think he is a significantly better quarterback now
Yeah.
this year than he was. And by the way, that continues something we've seen with him, which is linear improvement, which is something I love in a young quarterback. Like when you look at, have they been consistently improving over the course of their career? And when you go back to Spencer Rattler and you look at his college trajectory, and obviously going back to high school, he has consistently gotten better as time has gone on at the quarterback position. Plus, arm talent, athletic ability. Why wouldn't you bet on this guy and give him a shot? I really, really, I'm like, I'm buying in. I'm not saying, oh, he's going to be like the next. I'm just saying he's a starter. He's absolutely a starter.
I mean, he's making their decision pretty interesting now because the
Yeah, I
Saints
know. Yeah.
presumably are still going to end up with a very high draft pick. They're going to have like the thing they thought they would have, which is, the shot at the next quarterback. And all of a sudden you might have one already who at the very minimum has made that a difficult question, not a slam dunk.
I'm taking the Saints.
Wow. So what you're
uh,
saying is you would take Spencer Rattler over Caleb Williams. That's what we're
I
hearing.
wouldn't take him over Caleb Williams, but I'm not a buyer of this Bears defense. Oh, let me know. You know what? No. God, I'm so wishy-washy this week. No, I tried to talk myself into it, but I'm sticking with the Bears. I am taking the Bears. The Saints defense is bad. The Chicago, I love the way they ran the ball last week. And the other thing with the Bears defense, I know I'm completely undermining myself, is it was cool. You really saw the benefit of like guys returning to the lineup last week. It's like, oh right, this defense is not as bad as they looked early in the season as players like Brisker and Gordon and Edwards. Like
Yeah.
they're fine. Okay, sorry. I got a little crazy there. It was all that Spencer Rattler talk made me crazy. I'm taking the Bears.
Well, look, there's no negative repercussions for me picking them, so I'll pick the Saints, and that way we've got somebody sticking on the Rattler bandwagon.
All right. Raiders, Chiefs. Ooh, you.
Can we get Geno Smith to stop turning the ball over? I mean, that's my key for this
They
game,
could
right?
do it.
What has happened to Geno since moving to silver and black? The player that was there in Seattle, and okay, maybe he never backed up like the best season he had there, but he wasn't this. Like,
Yeah.
how has this happened?
It's befuddling to me. I mean, I've talked about it a lot because every week people are just constantly like, "You idiot! How dare you say he would be good?" I was like, and I'm like, look, obviously I was wrong. I'm taking the L here, and Darnold's been amazing. We'll get to Seattle, but
Yeah,
like, Gino was not this player in
no,
Seattle, and anyone who says that is lying. But he's bad, so I'm wrong because part of the job is saying like what you think is going to happen. Obviously, that's not shaken out. The turnovers are insane. They're just he's just forcing it. I know it's just bizarre to me. I think it's like the everything around him is pretty bad, right? Like there's no Bowers, the offensive line is a nightmare, but he is making it worse. And the Chiefs offense. Oh my God, Rasheed Rice is back this week. Good lord, Jesus.
yeah. And that's the thing with Geno. It's not even necessarily the volume of turnover
No,
type
it's
plays, which
the
has
way
been
it looks.
bad. I'm not saying that's good, but it's not even that would I would be focusing on. It's like it's the type of turnovers he's making. It's like, what is that? It's
I know.
old school Jets Geno has come back.
Totally agree. Yeah, like because in Seattle, when he turned the ball over, it was very much like, "Ooh, he thinks he can fit this tight window throw, and he's got a
Right.
little bit too much dip on his chip, or maybe there's a miscommunication with the receiver." These are just like boneheaded. It's crazy every week. We don't not much to talk about with the Chiefs. I will be interested in seeing if they can get the pass rush, really activated in this one because the
Yeah.
Raiders' offensive line is so bad. And if I was to look at the Chiefs and say, "What's the one thing that concerns me about this team?" It is pass rush. So otherwise, like the Chiefs are back to chiefing. All right, let's take a quick break, come back and hit a good game. Colts Chargers. All right, we're back. Oh, sorry. You picked the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Colts Chargers. Whoo! We got both sides of this. I'm gonna go first in this one. I got the Chargers who are at home here. I wrote, can Joe Alt return to time to save the day, because I think he's going to play in this. And maybe you're listening to this and you find out he's not. So, but the same analysis will apply, which is basically I'm very curious to see if the offensive line can show some improvement here. I think he's going to play though. Fingers crossed. Apparently he's out of boot. He's moving, and boy, do they need him. We don't have to get into that. So the Colts defense, the Colts offense has been a wagon. The Colts defense has been interesting but flawed. But one thing that jumps out to me, Sam, is they're just much better when they get pressure. And they got a lot of pressure against Arizona. I was really impressed by the pass rush in that game. I thought Kwity Paye went crazy. Adebawore, I would say his name wrong, Latu, they had 26 pressures on Brissett. Some of that was Brissett holding onto the ball a little bit, but they were good. When the Colts get pressure, Colts defense, they are 6th league-wide in success rate, 4th in first downs per attempt. When they don't get pressure, that drops to 26 and 24. So they get the opportunity now to go up against what's been one of the worst offensive lines in football. Don't need to give any stats on that. Use your eyes. But they might be getting back their star left tackle, and I think that could be huge in this one.
But like Gandalf up the hill, the white light, Joe Alt's riding to the rescue. We've basically done it again. I have the flip side. Latu to me is the key to this game because number one, I was banging the drum for Latu as edge one that year in the draft. I am invested as anybody in Latu being good, and he really wasn't as a rookie, surprisingly so. And he's been on a tear recently this season. Like I think he had 7 pressures or something against Arizona. He looks like the player he looked in college, where you've got this incredibly broad skill set of pass rush moves. Like he's so well developed, and all of a sudden it's working. In year one, none of it was there. He suddenly didn't look that athletic, and the tools weren't working. You're like, this is just not good. All of a sudden, he looks like a really up and coming, like dominant potential pass rusher.
And I love that you singled him out, because in this game, if Alt returns, hypothetically, he could be the one lined up opposite Trey Pipkins, so that the weak part of the Chargers offensive line. And yeah, it'll be like a matchup thing, right? Because the Chargers will have such a glaring weakness in pass protection. Just to turn it to the flip side really quickly, since we both focused on the Chargers offense in this one. Daniel Jones been awesome this year. Has come close to turning it. He did turn the ball over. Should have turned it over twice. The Rams game, and it's interesting because the turnovers all kind of look the same, where he's like, I don't know if he's not seeing the safety or if he's throwing, or it's just not, maybe like putting too much faith in his own arm too late. Do you have any? And the other thing I've noticed is like, he's not, his average other targets coming down a little bit. Any pumpkin concerns here? Or do you feel like the infrastructure around him is so good in Indianapolis, he's insulated from regression?
Yeah, I mean, I think Danny Dimes, Indiana Jones for MVP. I don't think that was ever realistic, even, over the course of a season. But I do think, like, I'm not expecting him to go back to being, oh, this is a train wreck. Like, this is awful. It's a disaster. Like, I think the situation has resulted in a better Daniel Jones. And unless the situation completely collapses around him, I would anticipate this still being a career year from Daniel Jones. And people always sort of forgot. I mean, the guy got whatever about how wise or otherwise it was, they gave him a $40 million a year contract in New York. Like he had bouts of performance where actual NFL people convinced themselves that Daniel Jones was at least a long to medium term solution for that franchise, right? So there was always the potential that in a really good situation with the best receiving core he'd ever had, probably the best offensive line he'd ever had, and arguably the best coach he'd ever had, was always going to result in a career year of Daniel Jones. So I think that's what we're getting. He's unlikely to be the MVP based off being Daniel Jones, but I think he's probably going to have the best year he's ever had.
I'm really interested in seeing how Jesse Minter defends the run in this one, because the Colts run game is amazing right now. And against Arizona, I talked about this on live. The left side of this offensive line was just stealing souls. I mean, that one big run, it was like a pin pull run where Quentin Nelson is pulling. He is like halfway, he is down the field faster than like the skill. I mean, he is moving out there, just dominating. I mean, he had an unbelievable performance. Taylor has been unreal this year. The vision he's running with in the backfield, and he's so explosive. And you go up against Charger defense that we know loves to play with light boxes and has been gettable on the ground. So if I'm Jesse Minter, I'm like, the fear of course, adding bodies to the box against Indianapolis is they can play action you, and then they've got guys who can turn short to intermediate targets into explosive ones. So I don't love this for the LA defense. Just structurally, I think they're going to be challenged.
Yeah, I think the Colts, I mean, that offense, I think, is a legit threat to anybody in the NFL. Like they have so many different ways to win. They've got athletes at every position. Tyler Warren coming in is completely not just fixed; it's turned a weakness into a strength. They're a tough assignment for any defense.
I'm taking the Colts. I've decided, even with Alt back, and potentially, by the way, Khalil Mack. That's another name to monitor, which is also they really need.
Uh, I'll take the Chargers.
I think the Chargers are favored. Last I checked, I really feel like that's a Joe Alt thing, because if Joe Alt doesn't play, I'm pretty comfortable taking the Colts. If Joe
Right.
Alt plays, you're like, oh, a little nervous, because I do think Herbert can carve him up. But on the flip side, I just love this Colts offense. Okay, just me on Giants Broncos. I wrote, just to get a little granular here, when the Denver Broncos play man coverage, and they played at the highest rate in the NFL, can anyone beat them on the Giants? And can they contain Dart as a scrambler? I feel like that's kind of the ballgame there, right? Like, Dart was so great against the Eagles, very
Yeah.
different defense that had some real weaknesses in man coverage because of the injuries that they had on the back end. There are areas in this Broncos defense you can go after in man, linebackers, Riley Moss at times. But I think it presents a much more significant challenge for Jackson Dart. And I'm very interested in seeing how much he runs in this one if they play man.
And also, when he runs, the more see of him running, I'm fascinated. I don't understand it. I can't work out why it's so successful because he's not hyper athletic. He's not like he doesn't strike me as a gifted runner of the football, and yet it works the same way. I mean, Steve compares his scrambling to Patrick Mahomes because Mahomes is always doesn't matter what his 40 time is, nobody ever catches him, right? He's always like his 40 time is tenth of a second faster than whoever is chasing him at the time, regardless of who that is. Jackson Dart, I watched that play against Zach Bond like 12 times to try and work out how he made him look so ridiculous. Because all he did is just turn to his right and run into the end zone. I'm like, what is happening here?
But he did it in college too, and of course you're like, okay, well, against the NFL, he's gonna get
Right.
punished for it. Do you think like defenders just don't understand, like they're underestimating his elusiveness or something? I don't know. It is interesting. I will push back. I actually think he's a pretty damn good athlete. Obviously he's not like one of the elite runners, but he is definitely good enough to the point where if you play man or if you seed a lot of grass, he will take it. Now, do I love the amount of contact he's taking when he takes it? I do not. That's
And
another
he
reason
is,
why
I mean,
he's such
that,
a good runner, by the way,
yeah.
is because of his willingness to run into crowded areas. But
And
there's a
that was
downside
like,
to that.
that was sort of part of his scrambling success in college. Like the dude is a load to bring down when he decides he wants to run and plow through people. Now, flip side of that is you're launching your face at linebackers, and that's probably not a great idea for a quarterback.
Um, Really quickly, the Broncos offense. It kind of got lost in the Jets game because the Jets put up like statistically the worst offensive performance of maybe all time. That the Broncos offense, which should have had a field day against the Jets defense that
Yeah.
couldn't stop a nosebleed, really put up a clunker. Do you have a degree of concern watching them on that side of the ball?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's definitely not been they're making too many mistakes from sort of several areas, and like sometimes happens with these teams, they don't all time them for the same play, right? So like somebody makes a mistake here, and then a few plays later, somebody makes a mistake here, and you stack enough of those on top of each other, and that's enough to stall your offense for a significant period of the game. Troy Franklin will have like a drop a game, and it's usually in an important time. Bo Nix once a game has an overthrow on a wide open touchdown target that's there to Mims or Franklin or whoever. Our guy Brandon Perna has nicknamed them Boverthrows won a game at least, right? So, and then the offensive line is getting a little bit banged up as well. They can't have those mistakes.
Yeah. Defense is so good that it obviously sets a floor for this team, but if we're really talking about them as a serious playoff contender, I need to see more from this offense moving forward. I'm still taking the Broncos in this one. I think the defense is going to really make life hard for Jackson Dart and the Giants. But
Yeah,
yeah,
same.
all right, you have Packers. This is, I think Jacoby Brissett is playing Packers Cardinals. I don't know if you heard. I'm sure you are more up to date on it because it's your game. But Packers Cardinals. What's your key?
So my key to this game is the red zone. Green Bay is top 5 on both offense and defense for red zone success rate. They're really good in the red zone on both sides of the ball. Arizona's not, notable necessarily in either direction. I think they're sort of below average on defense, in the middle of the pack on offense. But Green Bay, they've had this sort of weird season where I watch them play, and usually, like, you watch them score a touchdown drive, and you're like, "How does this not? How does anybody
Yeah,
stop
right.
this?
I
Like, it's
know.
so
I
dominant."
feel the same way watching them. I
And
think
then they
they're
do, like, then they do stop it for like a huge amount of the game. And you're like, "What? I don't understand how they're not 45 up at this point."
it's so they're I'm gonna do weekly power rankings right now. Um by the way, you can check them out on the show now has an Instagram, Mina Kime Show. Go check it out on IG. Exclusive to there. But I want to put the Packers so much higher than everyone else has them because it's like, you know, have you ever seen you've seen She's All That with Rachel Lee Cook
Mm,
where she plays like a nerd and Freddie Prinze Jr. sees that she could be beautiful and like gives, he dates her and makes her cool and you're nodding, maybe you haven't seen it. This might
I've
be
seen it
American fan.
years
Okay,
ago,
you've
but
seen
I've
it.
seen
Okay.
it.
So the joke around that movie is like she was obviously like hot the whole time. She was just wearing glasses,
Right.
right? The Green Bay Packers like have the hottest girl in the world inside of them. I feel like watching them. I know that analogy doesn't make any sense. And I'm just like, take off your goddamn glasses, Green Bay. You're so hot. They have everything required, I really think, to be the best team in the NFL. And yet, to your point, there's these like frustrating drives that make no sense. And it's always like I would say penalties are a common problem
Yeah.
offensively, or just like weird little execution lapses. It's like they just haven't put it all together, which is odd too because they're really well coached, and the defense kind of falls apart at the end of games, and it doesn't really make sense. And I just watch them, and I find them right now to be like a very frustrating team because I feel like they should be so much better than they are.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a eventually it'll click into gear thing, but it does feel like their ceiling is like best team in the NFL high, and yet it just doesn't show up every game or even all the way through the game. It's very frustrating watching them.
On the flip side, watching Jacoby Brissett, I love Jacoby. I'll never quit him. It felt to me like he's a better fit for Drew Petzing's offense than Kyler Murray. I don't think he's a better player than
Yeah.
Kyler Murray. And I've been dabbling with a take that Kyler Murray is going to be the next Baker Mayfield at some point. Like I could see these team and this quarterback parting ways. And then in like 5 years, people are like, how did they ever move on from Kyler Murray? He's so talented. But watching Brissett, I was like, ooh, you're like, yeah, this was never a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that it's a fairly damning indictment of Kyler Murray that Jacoby Brissett comes in, who, despite certain fans, is probably not a top 25 quarterback in the NFL, and yet it probably upgraded the offense. I agree with you that I think like Kyler might just end up being the sort of casualty of like it's just not a good fit, and we can't really make this work. I would go in a slightly different direction with the sort of logical conclusion of that, though. And instead of he's a future Baker Mayfield reclamation thing, I do kind of wonder if he's just one of those players that doesn't fit the NFL. Like he's such a special athlete, but he's more of a college player where you can get away with just being that. And actually, when you dive into his unique qualities as a player, it's really hard to craft a scheme for that still works in the NFL.
I think the reason I go into the Baker thing is like I hear you but I think Baker, like, mentally, and Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, like, all of those guys had arm talent and
Sure.
athleticism. They just had to mentally put it together, and that's what I'm looking at Kyler. I'm like, maybe in a few years you're gonna take a leap because you just played so much football. Yeah, but whatever. That's all speculative and weird. I got the Packers in this one. I
Yeah.
think
Same.
Jacoby comes back to earth a little bit too against this defense.
I just think they're better, even if
Yeah,
he
that's right.
doesn't come
Yeah.
back down to earth.
Take off your glasses. All right. Um, Commanders, Cowboys. We've got we've got 4 more games. Okay. Sorry. I spent too much time on my Rachel Lee Cook analogy that made no sense. We can go a little bit quickly. I mean, this is a big game. You go first. You've got the Commanders, who are the away team. What do you got in this one?
Bill. Bill
Yeah.
Krosky Merritt is the key to this game. Dallas's defense can't stop anybody. It's a wet paper bag, even on the ground, which is better than the past game. Bill
Yeah.
could go off with a monster game.
I have the flip side, which is like, can the Cowboys offense get back to running the ball well? Because they were so good until the Panthers game, and
Yeah.
then Carolina just stonewalled them. And boy, the Commanders defense really struggled to stop Chicago on the ground, particularly the off tackle runs and little tosses. So, like, which makes sense because I think they lack the speed, particularly at the second level. But they were also getting pushed around up front. Um, yeah, this might just come down to who runs the ball better, to be honest, now that I think about it. I mean, the Commanders' defense is better than Dallas's, I would say, but I think Dallas's offense is better than the
Yeah.
Commanders' offense. So it's kind of like, this is a sneaky close game. I went back and forth on this one a little bit.
What an analytics take that is, though. Like, it's just going to come down to who runs the ball better, which is a podcast brought to you from 1985.
It's the NFL in 2025, right? Who do you have for this one?
I am going to go with Dallas to bounce back.
Yeah. In Dallas. Their defense is so bad.
It is.
I'm gonna pick Dallas too, though. I think the Dallas offense is really good. CeeDee Lamb, by the way, is a name to keep your eye on. They're getting some good news about him. Yeah, that's me Googling. I actually, this one I looked up for personal reasons because he's on my ESPN fantasy team, which is the worst fantasy team of all time. Part because I drafted CeeDee Lamb first pick. But I don't think so. Him and McLaurin both are obviously names to watch in this one. I definitely we're going to see McLaurin. CD is supposed to return to practice today, so that's a name to. If CD plays, I feel really good about picking Dallas in this. I mean, the fact that they've been this good passing without CeeDee Lamb is Dak's playing out of his mind. Dak also has been playing better than Trey Daniels, so just saying. Okay. Falcons Niners. This one's just me. I wrote, how does San Francisco handle motion without Fred Warner, which is a very nerdy specific thing, but the Bucs absolutely motioned them into the oblivion when Warner went out in that game. I talked about it earlier in the week, but they cranked it up to 62% motion at the snap. Guess which team uses motion at the snap at the highest rate in the NFL? The Atlanta Falcons.
Nice.
One thing I think that I'm interested in from the Falcons' perspective is whether or not Penix does what he did at a higher rate, last week, which is attack San Francisco between the numbers, which of course, without Fred Warner, another thing Tampa did. So weeks 1 through 5, Penix threw outside the numbers at the highest rate in the NFL, 50% of the time. I think Jalen Hurts is behind him at second. But this week, so 50%. This week against the Bills, he actually threw over the middle of the field and had a lot of success doing so. And that number dropped to 37.5%. Would like to see them, Sam, continue that this week because I do think it's a weakness for San Francisco now. And it's also like, I just felt the Falcons' passing attack was so predictable, throwing outside the numbers so much and not really attacking the middle of the field. So it was good and encouraging to see them actually throwing on like in breakers to Drake London.
Yeah, which is what I mean, Drake London's so good at those as well. It should be something you're trying to do as much as possible because he's so good at that stuff. Yeah, it's a natural, I think, matchup to attack. Fred Warner's so good. I mean, losing him, I feel bad for the 49ers because a lot of teams are banged up and injured, but almost all of them, they're expecting to get most of those guys back. You've literally gone in and like handpicked the two best players from that defense and gone, well, they're not coming back. So no matter what you do, that's a problem.
I'm on Atlanta here. I just think this is the one that breaks the camel's back for San Francisco, the Warner injury.
And that defense is on such a tear, like, they might turn Mac Jones
Falcons
back into a
defense.
pumpkin.
Who's your favorite player to watch on the Falcons defense right now?
That I mean, Ellis is such
Yeah,
a dynamic
Collins
force
is
as a
my
blitzer,
yeah,
like, they're
so
terrifying,
good.
that front.
Yeah, the backers are really getting after it. Okay, you're Atlanta too, I presume.
Yeah.
All right, 3 more or 2 more, pardon me. The Monday night doubleheader. I'm going to be in Detroit for this game.
Oh, nice.
Brian Branch isn't. Well, he'll be in Detroit, but he's not playing. He was suspended. You go first. Bucks go to the Lions. This is another one where I know I'm a broken record here, but you really got to see who's returning to action. A lot of injuries on both sides. Tampa has been really banged up. What's your key for the Bucks team?
Yeah, so it's like the banged up wide receiver core against the banged up secondary, and specifically, if I'm going more granular than that, I wanna see Tez Johnson off the back of that insane, catch and breakout performance against Amik Robertson for the Lions. Like, Tez, I think, is such a dynamic playmaker. He's gonna be good in the NFL, but Amik Robertson quietly is a really difficult assignment as a slot type of corner.
The next time, this is sorry, a tangent, but the next time Tampa plays in Tampa, I want Bucks fans to just chant MVP every
MVP.
time Tez Jansen does anything as a joke. I think it'd be a great bit. I like him too. I liked him in college, and
Yeah.
I feel like higher on him than consensus. And it's cool. You're right. He's got like true game breaking speed, and it was cool to see him that way. And yeah, like without Branch, there's a lot of matchups for Tampa to attack in that Lions secondary. But on the flip side, I also think this matchup favors Detroit in the passing game. Speaking of the Lions offense against this Bucks defense, the Bucks struggle with play action. You really saw that against the Seahawks. They're 30th in EPA per play, yards per attempt. The linebackers are vulnerable in coverage, and they're really bad against intermediate throws. These are all things that, of course, the Lions offense measures in. I'm really interested in this game from a John Morton perspective. Because I think the Bucks run defense is very, very good, and I think they're also could be a problem for some of the specific types of runs that Detroit majors in. So I want to see if like he's willing to just like I would love first down play action in this one. Like don't lean into Tampa's strengths in the same way that Seattle didn't, right? Like, so I remember this was my key for the Seahawks against the Bucks. I was like, just please, the first down runs, like, you really got to attack them early, and they did that. And I think Detroit can also do that successfully against this Bucks defense.
Yeah, I think so. Their offense is kind of fascinating this year because obviously it's so much of it is the foundation from the Ben Johnson era, but they've changed like the approach at the top in terms of like almost the overarching like philosophy behind it. Like it's the same system, but instead of me rigidly prescribing exactly what you're going to do, we're going to empower you guys a bit more on the player level to just go out and make it work.
I, if Brian Branch was coming, I would feel a lot better about this. But I'm gonna take Detroit. I think Tampa's kind of been living a little bit on a razor's edge. Like they're good. They're a really good team. But I think that they've also gotten a little bit lucky, and I think that Detroit. I forgot. I really wanted to mention this. Detroit gets a Lynn McNeil back. Sneaky huge. They really have missed him at defensive tackle. So I think this Detroit pass rush is going to look a lot better this week than it has. So I do worry about the Detroit secondary to our discussion, but I think that the return of McNeil coupled with just the fact that their passing game is so such a bad matchup for Tampa, it has me picking the Lions in this one.
Yeah, I'm okay picking against the Bucks for the while because I think they'll be a better team when they get people healthier than they are now. I think it's okay to sort of say, look, they're winning games. That's great for them long term. They are getting it's not they're getting lucky. I mean, Baker Mayfield generally has been making plays and making miracles happen, but it does feel a little bit unsustainable. And if it doesn't sustain, that's fine because they'll be better in December with everybody healthy.
The Lions, who also play a lot of man coverage, have to come into this with a containment plan for Mayfield. He has won so many of these games with timely scrambles on third downs. You cannot, if you play man, you got to have a plan for him escaping because he is also a sneaky good scrambler.
Yeah. Another guy like that it doesn't make I mean, like, why is Baker Mayfield able to make this work every 3rd and 14?
See, I said this on the pod on Tuesday. He reminds me a lot of Mahomes on those third downs, like the way he scrambles. Cause like Dart, it's like, okay, you're big and fat, you look, but Baker, it's like he's got that dad bod, but he's just like wriggling away. He's so good. He's so slippery too, not just even on scrambles, but in the pocket. Like he really manages to, and that's been a big difference versus last year, by the way, because I think last year there were a lot more like bad sacks and big moments. This year he has mostly avoided that.
Yeah.
But maybe, we'll see how long that lasts. So, all right. So we're both on Detroit.
Yep.
All right. Final game, Texans, Seahawks. You go first. I'm on Seattle. Seattle's the home team. I feel like this is another one where we're pretty clearly going to have the same key here.
Yeah, I mean, every game the Texans play, the thing is the offensive line. They allowed, I think, 3 pressures against the Ravens, but the Ravens' defense is awful for some reason this year. It's everybody's
Well,
get right spot.
other reasons.
So every other game, it's been a massive problem for them, and it determines whether they win or lose. Now you go up against Seattle that just wrecked, Jacksonville's offensive line. Can they go any way towards slowing that down?
I don't think so. Yeah, we talked about the Texans offense. I will get to the other side of the ball, Texans fans, where I'm more optimistic about your prospects as I am every week because your defense absolutely slaps. So put a pin
Yeah,
in that. We talked about the Texans' offensive performance after the Ravens game, and like yeah, and Orlovsky was like, but they were using more under center play action, and Stroud had time, and I was like, Dan, like you can just write this one. I mean, I understand it looked a lot better, and they did a few things that we've been wanting them to do, but the Ravens defense is like NPCs everywhere right now. The Seahawks defense, you can't just be like, "Oh, cool, let's press the under center play action button." They're
right.
gonna still just CJ Stroud is gonna turn his back, and Byron Murphy's gonna be like kissing him, right? Like it's just. And the other thing is like this Texans offensive line, similar to last year, struggles so much with games,
It's
and
crazy.
Mike McDonald is like the games master, right? Like what they do with that Seahawks defensive line is just the way he moves guys around. I just think this is a potential nightmare
Yeah.
matchup for them up front.
I mean, look, we're biased as people that, we used to work with Bobby Slowick, but like Bobby was the problem last year, right? Like, why hasn't he fixed any of this stuff? They get rid of Bobby and it still looks like they've never seen a stunt before in their lives. Like, how have they not dialed that in the space of a year and a half?
Players matter. Turns out just changing to worse players doesn't actually make you better on the offensive line. Um, Are you the CX defense right now? I
But
wanted
so
to.
good.
So one thing I noticed on rewatching, because I think on I don't know if maybe I didn't talk about this, but like the pass rush was the story of the game, right? And like I love where's Leo Williams is like my favorite game watching the Seahawks. On the 7 sacks, he was like lined up at a different alignment on every single one of them. The most disgusting one was he was like a wide 9 outside Nwosu. I don't know if you remember that. It was like, oh my God, I don't know how, like nightmare fuel. And he just is I really believe he's like the best defensive lineman that people don't talk about. I think he's so good. But the other thing that caught my eye in this last one was I thought Nick Amenwari played really well.
Yeah.
And that's one to keep your eye on because so they used him mostly in the slot, but he blitzed him a few times. He got 2 pressures, forced incompletion, couple incompletions. They're getting Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon back. To me, that is going to unlock something with Amenwari where it's like, okay, cool. Now he can just be an agent of chaos. Just, I love the Seahawks defense. I also love the Texans defense, though. Let's talk about it briefly because they're great and they're awesome and they really do present a problem. Yeah, the Seahawks offense has been rolling, Sam, but they can't run the ball. Like, do you think there's potential for the Houston Texans to make this like a dirty, low scoring game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that they can cover and they can rush the passer. I mean, those are two really important things, particularly when you're going up against a team that struggles running the ball. Like they want to live in the passing game. They have, I think, one clear mismatch on Abraham Lucas on the right side of the line, but then even like Charles Cross is really good. I don't know if he's able to win every rep against the other side. So I think they can definitely. I mean, not just make it an ugly, low scoring affair, but turn the ball over, like force mistakes and steal drives from the your opponent.
Yeah, I also think that the fact that Seattle's been so bad at running the ball does make you worried because if they try to and you get into third and longs, you really is where this can get kind of hairy. Again, this is true of literally every team that plays the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
They're so good, but I would feel a lot better if Seattle had been able to run the ball better. It's an interesting offense, right? Because like they've been the premise of the Kubiak offense is like under center, wide zone, play action off of that. And it's a good example of why you don't actually have to run the ball well for play action to work because the play action part's great and the passing game looks often awesome, but the run game is not fixed at all, which is does give me a little bit of concern in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's definitely an issue in this matchup. It's also a longer term thing for them, right? Like this looks great in a lot of ways, but that's definitely a concern.
All that said, two great defenses, one offense I believe in a lot more than the other, and
Yeah.
that's Seattle. So I'm taking the Seahawks in this game.
Same. I mean, until I see otherwise, that Houston offensive line is like it's an Achilles heel that's going to show up against any good team.
Really quick, JSN is the blank best receiver in the NFL right now.
So, trying to think of a PG way of saying it. He's so good. I mean, I'm not ready to put him above the guys that are like
Jefferson.
Chase, Jefferson, but I mean, he's putting himself in that conversation. The other guy, by the way, that never gets put in that top tier is Nico Collins from this game. Nico
Yeah,
Collins, honestly, I think deserves to be in that legitimate top
yeah.
tier of wide receivers. He's so much more nuanced than I expected him to be when I like really watched all of his plays this offseason.
I don't think Seattle can cover him, but I also think CJ Stroud is going to be so
Yeah,
challenged.
well, I mean, it won't matter. He's the meme, right? The Chase Benet Sewell meme.
No, I'm with you. He's amazing. Yeah, this is really the pass protection bowl. Nico's great. JSN, like I feel it this year has taken such a leap to as just like a complete player, right? He's the nuances to his game. That out he ran this last week against Jacksonville is one of the filthiest routes I've seen. I think as a pure route runner this year, it's very hard for me to put many receivers in the conversation with him. And then he's got like hands and all of it, but the routes, oh buddy.
And the deployment, like the fact that they're going, we're going to move him everywhere. We're going to use him outside. Like all the things people thought he couldn't do coming into the draft, we're going to do all those and just show you how silly that was.
Crazy. All right. Well, that's it. We're both on Seattle. Really quick. So check the mic. You can get anywhere you get pods. You guys also have a YouTube page, correct?
Indeed. Yeah. Check the mic. YouTube is where you get to see the mastery of the studio, which I crafted with my own hands, or by crafted and, put some stuff on the wall. So yeah, YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Go check it out. It's a great pod. Also, if you are watching Love is Blind, my co-host of Viewer Discretion, my TV podcast, David Dennis Jr. and I will be recapping episodes 9 and 10 tomorrow tomorrow, Friday. That drops on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. As I mentioned, go follow the show Instagram follower, Mina Kimes show. By now, the power rankings will be out. Sam, I have been agonizing over these power rankings. It is really hard to power rank the NFL right now. It's like do you guys do that on your pod? Do you do power rankings?
No, we studiously avoid power rankings for precisely that problem.
Well, normally it's not this hard. Right now, it's like a living nightmare. I mean, I don't know. It's great. It's great. It's great for the league, but it's tough tough life for us power rankers. So go check out Mina Kimes Show on Instagram. You can also watch this on YouTube. And I will be back next week to talk about those awesome Monday night games with Dominic Foxworth on Tuesday morning. Thank you, as always, to our friends at Omaha Productions, Kirsten Sebecki, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Tosh. Wow!